All right, let's talk about the absolute powerhouse of every sentence you've ever written or spoken, the verb. Now, I know what you're thinking. Verbs are just action words, right? Run, jump, think. But they are so much more than that. They're actually the secret engine that decides how our entire sentence is built.
So let me start with a little puzzle for you. Think about the sentence, she slept. It's super short, right? But it feels whole. It feels complete. Nothing seems to be missing.
Okay, but now what about this one? He made his wife, you feel that? That little bit of tension? It just stops. It hangs in the air, totally unfinished. Your brain is screaming, he made his wife what? Happy? A sandwich? Furious? The sentence absolutely demands more information before it makes any sense.
So what's the difference? Why is a verb like slept so independent, but a verb like made is so needy? Well, the answer is all about the verb's hidden job. And understanding these different jobs, that's the real key to building amazing sentences.
Okay, first up, let's meet the most independent verbs in the bunch. These are the intransitives. Just think of them as the verbs that are perfectly happy to stand all on their own. So here's the deal with intransitive verbs. They show a complete action, and they don't need to pass that action on to anything else. The action starts with the subject, and it ends with the subject. It's totally self-contained. Let's look at a few. The child laughs. The laughing just stays with the child, right? It doesn't go anywhere. She slept. The action of sleeping belongs completely to her. Or even, he is eating. In this case, the eating is the whole story. The action isn't being done to anything, it's just happening.
Now, let's swing over to the complete opposite, transitive verbs. You know, unlike their independent cousins we just met, these verbs are not happy alone. They absolutely need a target. Their action has to go somewhere.
And this comparison really nails it. With intransitive verbs, the action stays put. But for transitive verbs, that action crosses over. It travels from the subject to an object. It needs something or someone to catch it.
Now, inside this big family of transitive verbs, the most common type you'll see is the monotransitive verb. Mono, that just means one, so it's pretty simple. These verbs need exactly one target, which we call a direct object, to make the sentence work. For instance, if you say, my sister bought, that's an incomplete thought. Bought what? You need that target. My sister bought a fancy bag. Boom. The bag is the direct object. It receives the action of buying, and now the sentence feels solid and complete.
But, what if a verb needs more than one target? Well, that's where ditransitive verbs come in. Di means two. Think of these as giving or sending verbs. They have two objects. One is the recipient, and the other is the thing that's actually being given.
And the pattern here is so predictable, which is great. You've got the subject, the giver, then the verb, the action. That action first hits the indirect object, the person who receives it. And finally, it all lands on the direct object, the actual thing that's given.
Check out these examples. I sent him a letter. Who's the recipient? Him. That's the indirect object. What was sent? A letter. That's the direct object. It's the same pattern in they gave mother presents. Mother is the recipient, presents are the thing. This is such a common and really useful way to structure a sentence.
Okay, last one in the transitive family, the complex transitives. And yep, these are the verbs from our puzzle at the very beginning. They need a direct object, sure, but they also need one extra piece, an object complement. This is just a word or phrase that either describes or renames that object. So let's go all the way back to that first puzzle. He made his wife, what did he make her? Happy. See, the word happy isn't a second thing he gave her. It's a complement. It describes the state of the direct object, his wife. And now, finally, the sentence totally works. Here's another perfect example. They elected him a president. Him is the direct object, of course, but the thought is incomplete without that last part. The object complement, a president, actually renames him and finishes the idea that the verb elected started. So we've covered verbs that stand alone and verbs that need targets, but there's a third major category out there, verbs that don't really show any action at all. Instead, their whole job is just to act as links. These are called intensive verbs.
Intensive verbs, you probably know them as linking verbs, are basically the equal sign of a sentence. They aren't telling you what the subject is doing, they're telling you what the subject is. They just connect the subject to a description or another noun that says what it is.
I mean, the most common one is the verb to be, like in she is nice. It's basically saying she equals nice. But other verbs can do this linking job too, like got in I got angry, or feel in I feel cold. In both cases, they're just connecting the subject, I, to a state or a feeling.
Whew, okay. That was a lot, I know. So let's pull all of this together into a really simple toolkit that you could start using right away.
So, when you boil it all down, there are just three main jobs a verb can have. 1. The action is self-contained. That's an intransitive verb. 2. The action transfers to an object. That's a transitive verb. And 3. The verb just links the subject to a description. That's an intensive verb.
And that's it. Just 3. Seriously. If you can figure out if a verb's job is to stand alone, pass an action along, or just connect two ideas, you have basically cracked the entire code of English sentence structure.
And why does any of this matter? Well, because this isn't about memorizing rules for a test. This is the blueprint. Knowing these patterns is what lets you build stronger, clearer, and way more powerful sentences when you write and when you speak.
You know, once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them. So as you go through the rest of your day, start paying attention. Listen to the verbs people use, look at what you're reading, and just ask yourself, what job is that verb doing? I promise you, you'll start seeing these patterns absolutely everywhere.